Welcome to the CRM MVP podcast, episode 109. My name is Gus, and today we have two amazing guests on the show, repeat guests, Nick and Sarah. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hey, Gus.
Thanks, Gus.
I know that we've been on a hiatus of some kind. We haven't had an episode in a couple months, but this week, the three of us, are actually attending the UG Summit. I still struggle not to call it CRM UG Summit. But,
Agreed. It's different. It's UG Summit.
Yeah, the UG Summit, and I don't think we're allowed to call it user group. Apparently, Microsoft bought the rights to the term user group, I heard. But whatever, it's the UG Summit. This is all legit, by the way. We're here at the summit in person, and I had this idea to basically come together in the episode and just talk about why we're here, what we think of it. Are we going to come back next year? Was it worth it coming here? You know, all that stuff. And maybe share some funny stories from the summit, because there's been a couple times that it's been pretty funny.
Absolutely.
Right.
No, I agree. And I think it was very awkward for a lot of people here. You didn't know what to expect. Usually when you come to UG Summit, you have your regular group of friends. You know, I call it my tribe. Like my fellow MVPs, my very good friends. And a lot of them weren't here because you couldn't travel from other countries. Even some organizations or companies had a no travel policy, like Microsoft not being here, some other large organizations not being here. So you didn't know who was going to show up. When you look at the schedule, you see all your friends presenting, and you see all these great speakers that have presented at Summit in the past. Yeah. And most of them presented remotely. So you had no idea when you're walking into a room, is that person going to be here or not? So that was a little bit awkward in that situation.
I think a lot of people were also kind of hesitant that last year's summit was virtual, and a lot of people didn't enjoy that. That's because, in person is the best experience. No matter what. So some people attended the virtual and they didn't really like it that much. And then this year, you can't come in person, but people were like, I'm just going to hold back and see what happens and how things come about. Why did you guys decide to come in person? Because Nick, I feel like you were, until recently, you were like doubtful.
Yeah, no, Rick McCutcheon and I had a conversation about 2 weeks ago where we were both like, yeah, we're not going to Houston. Even though we were kind of registered, we were, we had commitments to be down here. We were like, yeah, there's not a chance that we're going to be flying down here. And then on Monday, I see social media from Rick saying he's in Houston, and I'm in Houston, and I text him, I'm like, are you actually here? He's like, yeah, I'm here. So, I honestly, I personally just kind of ran out of reasons not to come. I'm fully vaccinated now. Where I come from is kind of going through a bit of a crazy COVID time anyway, so it feels like it feels weird to say, but like Texas might be a safer place to be than where I am back home. So we're allowed to travel. All it took was a couple tests, and what really kind of did it for me is. My wife was talking to me about, a week and a half ago and mentioned something about, we're going to do this thing when you get back from your trip. And I was like, exactly. Wait, you still think I'm going on my trip? Well, I guess I'm going on my trip now. So, exactly. So yeah, I had 3 sessions that I had to do, and I figured, why not? Why not?
And by the way, I mentioned earlier, I'm a horrible host. I kind of forgot already how to do this. I kind of mentioned that you guys have been on the show, but let's just do a quick introduction, because I feel people are listening. It's like, okay, Sarah and Nick, but who? Like, they don't know. Plus, we have several Nicks and several Sarahs that are MVPs, which is weird. Well, until recently, we had several Nicks.
Yeah, so I'm Nick Dolman. I'm I work for XRM Ready XRM. I can never remember. Never remember
the name of your company.
No. So I'm Nick Hayduk. I'm the other Nick from Canada that does portals. The only Nick left that does portals since our dearly departed MVP friend Nick Dolman, not dead, but is to us since he's now with Microsoft.
Figurative.
Nick Hayduk from Engineered Code in Canada, and I do portals.
Sarah Jelinek from Arctic IT. Been on the podcast before with Ulrich talking customer service. Live in Fargo, and it wasn't an issue for me to travel here. Right. I've traveled a couple of times this summer already to LA, to Santa Barbara, San Francisco, the Napa area. Sometimes I feel more safe on an airplane during COVID time than I feel as I was telling this to people last year. I felt more safe on an airplane where you're in a tin can circulating air, then I felt safer buying fireworks on the 4th of July, near the 4th of July, where people
Right.
didn't wear masks and didn't social distance, and COVID wasn't a concern to them. So for me, it wasn't an issue, but I completely understand for those that were hesitant about coming here, because you just didn't know what the situation was going to be like. I at no time felt threatened that I was going to have close contact with somebody.
Right.
The wristbands were a great idea, which if you want to talk about that as well.
We need to talk about that, because I think that's cool. For me, before we talk about that, for me, I've had several people here ask me, it's like, oh, is this the first time you travel in 2 years or whatever? The answer is no. I've been traveling all over the place, scuba diving, which is something I really enjoy. And, to me, I cannot feel safer than underwater where nobody's, messing with me or talking, close to me or whatever. So I've been traveling like all over Florida. I went to Mexico. I'm just scuba diving all over the place. So when the opportunity came to actually be here in person or virtually, I knew I had to be here in person. I mean, there's just no substitute. I know that there might be people out there that will say that virtually is equally effective or whatever, but there's no way. Like, we finish these sessions, we go into the medics booth, we sit there, people stop by all day asking questions. Yesterday, somebody had like her Canvas app rebuilt by 3 MVPs, basically, Sarah, Chris, and Scott. All of them, like hands-on, let's just figure this out together. Nobody's charging anything. Everyone is doing it just because we want to help. You cannot reproduce that virtually. There's no way. Even if they made a virtual medics booth, it's just not the same thing. So that's why I decided to come here in person, and I was happy. I was kind of concerned because, I went to a concert like a couple months ago, and then the band like suspended their tour after that because COVID was picking up or whatever. So I'm like, how likely is it that the MVP Summit not the MVP Summit, I wish that one was happening. The UG Summit will continue, knowing that some states are like closing in, right? So I'm glad that it happened. But let's talk about what you said. The bracelets. I thought that was cool. So first of all, typically when you do registration, I cannot remember a single event where it was self-registering, where you would just go and pick up your badge and move on. This is the first time, at least for me. It's the first time where it was self-registration. There was a computer. You typed in your name, I think it was, and then it would print your badge, basically, or a piece of paper, whatever, transparent paper that you put on a badge. Then after that, there were bracelets. You want to talk about bracelets?
Yeah, certainly. So they had 3 different colors. You had red, which was "Please give me my space." So they're like the Live Strong bracelets, this kind of the silicone that you'd put on your wrist.
By the way, I didn't see anyone with a red one.
I did see a couple people with red.
You saw? Okay. I didn't see
There's
anyone.
one gentleman in the front of our panel who's sitting right behind one of the presenters, but did have that red bracelet on. And then yellow meant, I'm good for elbows. Like if you want to do the elbow shake, which some people I just still shook their hands. And then the green was I accept handshakes and hugs, which is what I put on. And I actually didn't put it on my wrist. I put it right on my badge. So people, when they're looking at my name, they can see, hey, you can hug me or you can give me a handshake. So everyone was very respectful of that. And even if you did have a green, you'd say, are you still okay for a hug? No one forced it on anybody. And no one shunned or treated anyone differently because they asked for their space.
Super respectful. Most people wore masks, I think, at least on day one. I felt like there were a lot less masks today, and we're recording this session the day that they're tearing the whole expo floor apart right now. So the conference is over for all terms and, all intents and purposes. But I saw a lot less people with masks. And I saw a lot less people doing the elbow thing. Like Scott was a good example where he was initially like just fist bumping or whatever. And then today he's just walking around like, shaking people's hands or whatever. It's like, I think a lot of people came with like a heightened state or whatever of awareness. And then after a couple days, we were like, okay, this is back business as usual.
Well, for some of us who were traveling internationally, once we got our negative test, we can come home. Yeah, we don't care anymore, right?
You can give me COVID in the mouth.
Yeah, you can give me COVID all you want. I can still go home tomorrow. So,
no,
exactly.
Not that you're still being very careful. Just for people who are wondering if Nick just went all crazy and started hugging and kissing everybody, he's still being very respectful about it. But they had hand sanitizer stations all over.
Everywhere.
They had the bottles. They constantly reminded you, please wear your mask in the session room. Speakers could take theirs off because they're speaking, so you can hear them clearly. And they also had hand sanitizer everywhere and reminding you before you pick up your food, please use the hand sanitizer. I didn't really see the bottles there on the tables too much.
Right.
When you're grabbing your box lunch, I think you're pretty safe. But they had small little bottles, for you to pick up. I'm sure there's still like 50,000 of them over there that you can pick up. So they're being really careful about the safety, providing free masks, even phone sanitizers to clean your phone screen. So, they're taking it seriously here.
Yeah.
But they realize the importance of community and in person it's priceless, to be honest with you.
I thought it was cool. It was kind of like choose your own poison kind of thing. Like if you want to be super careful, like don't touch me, whatever, let me sanitize everything. It was fully respected. I noticed that the sitting arrangement in the rooms were split. I don't know if they were a full 6 feet apart or whatever, but they were definitely not close to each other. It was not next to each other how it is in every conference. Yeah. So they definitely did a good job with that.
Yeah, it was like if you're sitting, normally when you're at events, it's like the chairs are stuck to each other and you cannot dislodge them. It's like they took that chair out of every other chair. So you had room, and then people they would sit next to each other with that space between them, or they would have another full chair, so that could be your full 6 feet. But if people didn't feel comfortable, they'd stand in the back of the room, or they maybe would just step out knowing that they could watch the session later.
Yeah. I haven't heard any issues either with the whole virtual delivery. That was another thing that I was concerned about, was that there would be a bunch of presenters, as we talked about, that would be virtually attending and presenting. And although the process wasn't as smooth as I wanted, for example, for me presenting here in person, I have no idea if people tune in virtually. I have no idea if people had issues with my audio. I had no idea if people had questions, right? For presenters and for anyone listening to this, if you attended the event virtually and you feel frustrated that no one answered your question or whatever, the presenters really didn't have a chance to see anything virtually. There was nobody in the room telling you hey, raise your hand. I have somebody online has a question. For me personally, I didn't see that. And then I noticed that for the people presenting virtually, because I attended sessions that were presented virtually, they had no way of doing the same, but with people in the room. They had no idea to see the room, to see if anyone had questions in the room. It was all virtual. They could see people virtually or whatever. They could see questions coming in. They would answer those, but nothing with the room. We had a few MVP buddies that would send us messages and say, hey, can you go to my room and make sure that everything is working? And we did help them out, but
yeah, we take pictures or share numbers of the people in the room. But
yeah.
Yeah, I got lucky because with my sessions today, the AV tech who's in the back, he just said, I'll just keep an eye on the chat. And he'd put up his hand and he would ask questions on behalf of people in the chat. So that worked out well because just the way the presentations work, I couldn't have the chat screen open up on my computer. I'm sharing that screen, just the way it works. I just couldn't keep an eye on that thing. But my guy actually just would put up his hand and I could take virtual questions when they came up. So I'm sure not all AV, that's probably not their job, and probably not all of them would feel comfortable doing it, but at least my guy that I had for all three of my sessions today, he did that, so that was nice.
Yeah, they were very supportive. The AV company they hired to do this stuff, they knew what they were doing. It was legit. They were prepared.
Yeah, and they've done past summit sessions because it's the DCE crew. Just giving them a shout out. They're very professional, amazing, help you out with anything. They sit there and listen to content that they have no idea about every day, all day, and they're engaged. And they immediately, when you even just say a hint of something that something might be going wrong, they'll take care of it immediately.
I sat on a session from Daryl Labar that I still don't know if he spoke English. It was just straight up just gibberish, code and whatnot. Super high level, level 800. At least for me, it just seemed like something alien. And at the end of the session, I just walked out wow, I need a drink or something. This is insanity. And the AV lady was like, wow, that was so interesting. I loved it. And I'm like, what?
Yep. She said Daryl's sessions were awesome. He did a great job.
Now, I don't think typically at Summit you would normally have an AV person in your room all the time. Would there be?
In the past summits, we've had a dedicated
always,
AV person.
Because I've been to
room.
lots of a lot of the conferences I speak at. There's an AV person walking around if you have issues, but you walk in and they'll set you up with your mic.
I've been
but
to
then
both.
they move. So it's kind of nice to have someone there in case anything went wrong. You had your person, and they had the camera set up, and so it was really nice.
I think they're increasing the presence of the AV techs, and I think they obviously with this case when you're doing virtual. They did have that. And I'm sorry, you're right, actually, Nick, that for the UG summits, they have had somebody kind of outside monitoring maybe 3 or 4 rooms and running in and checking. But at Ignite, you had a dedicated or Microsoft conferences, you have a dedicated AV person in that room.
Yeah, because at these events, I mean, in the past, the big feature was, hey, we have like one room that's being recorded or one room that's live streamed, but typically there just hasn't been anything. So all they need to do is make sure that the mics work. And I don't think they always had someone sitting in the back to make sure that your volume was okay.
Yeah, no, it was cool. And I think, I mean, it's not like the event was perfect. There's things they can improve. But that was also true when they were no virtual events, when they were all in person. I felt like that there were always things they could improve. I think they did a great job. Honestly, it went better than I thought. There were less people here than I thought, though. I thought more people would show up. We're kind of like, I don't know, like I guess spoiled from the old events that had 12,000 people or whatever. So when you come to an event with 2,500 people, and I heard the official number was 2,600 people that were here.
In person, yeah.
In person. Yeah. It feels way, way, way smaller, which worked out for us because we won a bunch of awards, a bunch of giveaways.
Trivia. Yeah, it's all about the trivia.
We dominated.
Yeah.
I think you won like T-shirts. Each one of us won, well, we allegedly, until we get it.
We think we won. Yeah.
We think we won a $500 Amazon gift card.
I'm glad my wife doesn't listen to this podcast because I'm not sharing that with her.
You're not. No, I'm just happy. I don't have. That's Christmas gifts for me. Like I'm good.
Let's talk about the expo, Gus, because I think it was, for all the years I've been going to conferences and going to Summit, the expo hall continues to increase in its magnitude, in the level of marketing that happens, the level of the booths that they present. It continues to amaze me. Like I go to Ignite and I see, oh my gosh, at Ignite, the things that some vendors do. Really great presentation, lots of vendors here. I do wish we did have a bigger audience for them because you have so many that are there. And when you walk by, you don't necessarily know if they work for you or with you and what products you use. I say in the past summits, you had that indicator to say, hey, we work with the CRM UG or the NAV UG or BC or GP. You got an idea of what product groups that they worked with. I really didn't get that.
Because I know some years they had like the stickers on the floor, and some companies are all 4 stickers. Or
I mean, we've seen the badge holders are different colors, where it's like red for CRM and yellow for whatever.
But not this year, right? No, these are all the same.
You can't tell anything.
Yeah. But yeah, I used to like when they'd have like literally the stickers on the expo floor that says this booth is CRM and AX or whatever it was. And yeah, they didn't have that this year. So you'd kind of walk by and be like, well, I don't even know if they're relevant to me. And I mean, and especially us, we're kind of like the smallest of the groups, I feel like. So the fewest.
Some of the small, right.
Yeah.
But you also don't, and it's not to say that we're shy. We're certainly not. But we don't necessarily want to engage a vendor and take up their time when a true prospective customer may be coming by.
Yeah.
And they miss that opportunity.
Unless the swag is good.
Yeah.
If the swag is good, I mean, I think we've proved.
Some of these booths killed it.
Yeah.
With the swag.
Like,
it was awesome.
Should we give a shout out to the best booth of all?
Which one?
What was it? Thomson
Reuters.
Thomson Reuters. They had pretzels. They had that snack like table there the other day. They had drinks.
Oh my God.
Like, not to mention the trivia.
Yeah.
Like, it was, and what really helped was the fact that it was right across the aisle from the medics, which is where we hang out. So
I do have a complaint, I guess, or something that I hope they change for next year. I don't think they will, but I hope
they listen.
Well, I don't know, but I even if they listen, I think they're gonna do it anyway. I didn't like the fact that the medics booth were now sponsored by a vendor.
Yes, that was a bit strange.
And then, like, that's not, I'm okay with that. But the fact that the vendor staff, like, swamped the medics booth.
It was like their booth.
Yeah, it was like their booth. So it's like people will come to talk to us, the medics, and not just us, but others that were there that deserve to be medics. And they were just overwhelmed by all these other employees from the vendor, where I was like, I mean, at some points I'm like, okay, who is a medic, who's not? It was like too complicated. So I feel like there should be a little bit more rules about that. And I felt like the attitude was like, well, we paid for it, like we sponsor this thing, we can be here and do whatever we want. And for me, I was like, man, if I was the leading this thing, I would say, look, you can sponsor, you can do giveaways, you can potentially do a demo at the booth like at certain times or whatever. But other than that, this is really a medics booth, and the medics should be here.
I go ahead.
And I was just say, if you've ever been to one of these events before and you see the people standing there in the goofy jackets, you're kind of like, oh, why are people wearing these? It's like, it actually, I kind of missed the jacket just because it made it very clear who's a medic and who's not. Because people would kind of walk up and they'd be like, oh, are you guys here to help? People didn't really know what was going on because it could just be random people hanging out as we did at the GP medic booth where we thought we were on the wrong side of the border there. But
yeah.
People didn't know that whether people were medics or not, right? So there was no way to, and obviously I know why they weren't sharing coats. I get it, it just looks like another place to hang out almost. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree and disagree with your statement. I mean, I agree there was no distinction of who was a medic. So in that case, if you were going to be a medic, then maybe give us even just a pin to say the doctor is in that we can wear and we can keep for ourselves. So that, again, not sharing lab coats or anything like that, but just to indicate that I am here to help you. I didn't mind the vendor being there because I think they have the opportunity to hear from people and hear what issues they're having. Just like, we as partners and we as implementers, we hear these problems or issues that users are encountering, and it gives us ideas to think of how can we make it better, like us to help the community. We might do it for free and do it to help others, but this partner, this organization that's sponsoring may use that to add a feature to their product, and that could go and spend the time and money to give a good solution to it. So I'm kind of torn with that because they did sponsor, they did provide money for it. I think because it depends on the partner, the company that sponsored, how much presence they had there. They may not have had a bigger booth. They didn't really have a place to sit, so this was theirs. It made sense, but
here's my concern. My concern is this year the sponsor. I mean, I think it was a good fit in terms of it's a new product that they're launching this product, and I agree with you. Getting feedback to improve it and all of that fits. But next year, it could be anybody. It could be a recruiter, for example. And I don't know if people would be willing to stop by if they were being harassed and saying, hey, are you in the system? Do you guys do hiring, or are you looking for a job? It's the soliciting, I think it can get out of hand.
It could, and I don't think it did in this summit. I think if the organizers have specific rules, just like anybody coming to a summit, you cannot recruit other people for your company. You can't hire. That is not what this is about, right? That's been in the past. I don't know what the rules are, and
they stepped over the line. Several people. I mean, everyone was looking for. I mean, and there's a shortage everywhere. I mean, I noticed that, but anyway,
you're talking other people stepped over the line,
I saw countless other companies asking, hey, are you looking? Can we talk or whatever? I saw it. I mean,
no, I agree.
People were blatantly saying why are you? I asked some people. It's what are you guys doing here? You have sessions or whatever? It's no, we're looking for people. They just came here to recruit. So yeah.
I mean, is there not other things why does someone have to sponsor the medic booth? Is there not other things that some people could, I know you want to bring in as much revenue as you can,
of course,
but is there not something else? Did they run out of ideas?
Somebody sponsored the drinks, somebody sponsored the snacks that we had at the table. So yeah, I mean there's all sorts of opportunities. But is it that they
had so many people saying, hey, I want to sponsor something, that they're we ran out of ideas, maybe you can sponsor the medic booth? Or was it just couldn't they not have come up with some other way to some other sponsorship?
I mean, I think playing devil's advocate, I feel from the company that sponsored it, they could be this is a way for us to show that we care about the community and we want to help, and we feel it's appropriate that there's a medic booth and that they're going to be helping the community. We want to pay for that. We want to make sure that this happens. From their perspective, that it seems like they're doing a good thing, but I just felt there were more people from that company than medics most of the time.
Yeah.
Most of the time. I mean, there will be 4 or 5 of us and 6, 7 from the other company. It will be dude, guys, this is a lot.
Again, first year.
We don't have to talk about this for 30 minutes.
But I
just think they can be improved.
Hopefully we have the opportunity to provide feedback and provide that and say, hey, we're cool if they're there, because you're right, they paid for it. They're probably the ones that paid for that cool table that we had and the chairs and those really comfortable chairs and the chargers. It is a recharge lounge, right? It was supposed to be a medic booth and lounge. And the fact that we actually got to have a medic booth lounge in the expo hall this year,
I really
when in
like
the
that.
past it's not been, because granted, people pay a lot of money to sponsor this. They don't want a lot of people going to that medic booth when they could be visiting the people that help sponsor the event. So
Right.
I get why they did that, but people didn't hang out there all day. They asked their question, they moved on to the next. And I think it's just giving them that, which is what we're part of, a community, giving that community a chance to help each other was huge.
Yeah. That was big. So yeah, we don't need to talk about medics. Is there anything else that you guys think could be improved? And I think this is the time for us to also talk about next year, because they announced that next year they're going to do it in person. They actually announced they're going to do it in person for 2 years. They said we have a place to do this thing for 2 years. Next year is going to be in Orlando, same place where the last one was, if you don't count Houston. The last one in person was in Orlando, same location, Gaylord Palms, which I thought it was a cool location. It was okay. And it's next year, October 10th to the 12th, and I'll be here. I mean, I want to be in person. I hope that nothing like COVID-22 comes out or something. I mean, I hope that everything is cool and we're able to come back, because I really miss the event, and I feel like there's just nothing like being here in person with the community.
Yeah, I really liked, I mean, there was a ton of sessions. I found it a bit strange. Like, it seemed like they were all kind of packed in. And kind of a weird times. Like my session this afternoon, I mixed up the times, and I actually ended my session 10 minutes early, because you're just so used to them being on the hour. They start at 2 and they go till 2:50. So mine started at 1:10. I'm paying attention to the clock. I see it's 1:50. You got to wrap this up. So I wrap it all up, and I walk out the door, and it's like, why is no one out here? It's because I wrapped up my session 10 minutes early. So there was kind of these weird times, and then a lot of the times the days didn't start till 8:30, 9 o'clock, and then the last sessions were at 2. So I just found it a little strange that there were all these great sessions. Like, I remember the first day, the very first session, there was like 3 or 4 that I wanted to go to. So I'm not sure why it was not as spread out, why we weren't going till 5. Sometimes they go into 6. So I'm not sure why that particular decision was made. But I mean, there's not really much tomorrow, which is fine. That last day is always kind of a bit of a crapshoot anyways, but it seemed weird that we were ending at 2. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like going to hang out and doing that sort of thing, but it just seemed like we kind of crammed them all into kind of a shorter amount of time.
Yeah,
so.
they left, half the afternoon or whatever for expo hours. They wanted everyone to just go to the expo. So that's why they did. What do you think, Sarah, about next year?
Yeah, next year, absolutely. Again, we're keep repeating the same thing. There's nothing quite like in person, and that. When they had it at Gaylord Opryland in Nashville, we ran out of room. I mean, people were sitting crisscross on the floor, packing a room. Definitely could not do that at this time. I feel like the one in Orlando, we had a lot more room. It seemed more spacious. I was never concerned about running out of space in a room when you're presenting. So hopefully we have that same situation next year. I agree the times were very odd. I did like that we didn't have... so that. It's a double-edged sword, right? You could have 8 hours of amazing sessions and trying to cram that all in and attend all these sessions, even 7 hours or 6 hours. Your brain can only take so much, right? So by the time you get to the expo hall, when it opens in the evening, you're exhausted. And you don't want to walk all the way around and see the vendors. So I think making it a little bit earlier for people to still have their energy and go visit was great. But you're limited to which ones you could go to. So now, like you said, you had 3 to 4 to choose from. So you got to find that balance. And I think the challenge with this location here in Houston at the George Brown Convention Center is that all of our sessions were on the 3rd floor. The expo hall was on the ground floor, so floor 1. Our lunch was served outside of the 3rd floor rooms. Previous summits, you would have the expo hall, and then you would have the lunch area right next to it. So even if it was separated by ropes or curtains or something, when you got done eating, you could go make a quick round in the expo hall if you wanted to. I think it made it too distant for people to do that, to make the journey. I did like it here because it was connected to 2 big hotels. Like today was pouring rain. I know I don't have to walk outside at all because I can traverse it easily. So it's, there's still some things that they need to work on that they've done in the past that people are expecting. And hopefully they'll remember and consider that for the next ones that they do.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think, this year they did a good job. They got the planning committee together. The plan committee did its thing. They picked sessions. They gave the speakers the option to present virtually or in person, so no one had an excuse not to do it. I do know of some people that canceled their sessions for one reason or another or couldn't do it, but they were very flexible. They even gave Daryl a session by mistake or randomly or whatever outside of the flights that he had. So he reached back out and said, is there any way you can move this so I can make my flight? And they were like, absolutely. They made it work. So I think they did a great job, this year, and I'm looking forward to next year and the year after that. I mean, I hope that it keeps growing, and I really hope that the vendors that were in the expo got their money's worth, like whatever they invested. I mean, I did hear that because of the social distancing, they make these booths apart. And you notice there was some separation between them as well. But at the same time, because of the lower attendance, what they said was, look, the booth is going to cost the same as every year, like whatever you typically pay, but then the size can be like 4 times the size. I mean, this is the first conference that I see there's so many, like, I call them like flagship booths. I mean, they have like stuff hanging overhead and, music and all this stuff. In previous years, you always have like 1 or 2 of those big ones, or maybe 4. I mean, it just felt like every company this year had like a massive, booth. So I think there is some truth to that. It's like, oh, you used to pay $5,000 for a medium size. Now you have the XL, or whatever. And, companies went above and beyond to make that work. So I'm excited. I mean, that's really the feedback. I don't know if there's anything else that you guys can think about that you would do differently. Rooms when they were packed, they got pretty hot. I noticed that in some rooms, but again, that wasn't an issue in Orlando. I don't remember that being an issue, so it should be a non-issue next year. Just by switching places, you fix some of these. Like you mentioned the expo thing or whatever. Just by being in Orlando, this is probably solved.
Right.
The only one that popped in my head was that one about the sponsoring of the medics booth, which made it super nice. And I'm okay with it having a sponsor. I like the companies support the idea of a medic booth and a place for people to come and get help from MVPs and other experts. But I just did think it was overwhelming. Is there anything else that you thought? The internet was great, by the way. No complaints about the
internet.
Wi-Fi or whatever.
The speaker room, which I still haven't confirmed if it exists or not. We heard rumors of a speaker room.
Yeah, it's like Bigfoot. People said they saw it.
Yeah.
There's pictures of it, but
So I
couldn't find it.
But I mean, I don't need a speaker room, so that's all good. I really liked, as Sarah had mentioned, about the hotels that are connected. I mean, that's one thing you don't get in Orlando. You got a nice one big hotel, but if you don't get into that one, you're taking a shuttle or something, right? So here, again, we're kind of dealing with smaller numbers here. So if we had the same numbers that we had in Orlando, maybe everyone doesn't get in, but it seems like most people you talk to, they got into one of the 2 hotels that is directly connected. So that's great. I can't say that Houston downtown is super rocking. I don't know. Like, first night I arrived at about 5 o'clock. Went out to get some supper, and it was
everything was closed.
Everything was closed. I mean, the next couple of nights I kind of found where the spots were, but usually you're kind of downtown in a big city, and it's like you can't walk
all
5 feet, and you're gonna run into something to do. And here it was like, oh man, this place shut down. I tried to find a Whataburger because I know that's big in this area of town. It's like, oh yeah, they closed at 2:30. It's like, what? Like, what kind of burger joint closes at 2:30?
I thought they were 24/7.
Yeah. So, we just unfortunately missed going to a Astros game because they never played here the whole time we were here. But I know there's a game tomorrow night, and so we could see those cheaters try and play some baseball.
If people have questions about the event, if they're wondering, whether they should come next year or whatever it is, if they want to know more about you guys, where can they find you? Sarah, let's start with you.
You can catch me on LinkedIn, Sarah Jelinek, or you can follow me on Twitter at SarahJ_ND. I also have my own website, sarahjelinek.com. Not great about updating it, but feel free to reach out and say what you want to learn, and I'll be happy to try to figure it out.
So many things. Nick?
For me, LinkedIn, Nicholas Hayduk, Hayduk. And then all my other stuff is under my company name. So engineered_code on Twitter is kind of where you can see all the stuff that I do. Podcasts, YouTube channel, blogs, community calls, all that sort of stuff. So
MySpace, everything.
MySpace, yep.
That's awesome.
Friend face, yeah.
Friend face.
Friend face.
Yes.
Is that a new one?
If anyone's watched the IT, is it the IT code? I'm totally losing the
The
chat.
IT
Yeah.
people? Is it? IT
No, it's
crowd?
IT crowd.
Oh,
Excuse
yeah.
me, IT crowd.
yeah.
Yes. Have you
I've
tried
heard
turning it off and on again? I think it's called Friend Face. Is what their fake social media group is.
I think I'm going to start a TikTok. What do you guys think? Should I start TikTok?
Sure. Why not? More
CRM
stuff.
MVP TikTok.
Let's do it. And for those of you listening, thank you so much for tuning in. I know that we're not releasing episodes as often as we used to. Hopefully some of the other MVPs will step up and host. I mean, this is a show for all MVPs, so I hope that we have some episodes coming. And some MVPs did step up and say they want to host. So hopefully, we can put more episodes out there. But I just thought that it would be a good idea for us to talk about the event while we're still here, while it's still fresh in our heads, and let people know how things went here in Texas. But other than that, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.